All right. Welcome back, everyone. After a little pause, welcome, Stephen and um, Emery. You've had your hand up. Go for it. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Jamin. Hey, Stephen. Nice to see you. Well, I guess I'll start off by just replying to to James there. He made a comment about vaccines, and I just gotta tell you, James, they're not gonna inject me. I'm not gonna allow that, and I just don't believe in those vaccines. I don't have any confidence in them, and it's not going to happen for me. Now, that seems to be quite an objective with these folks, with these people in charge. They want to chip everybody, they want to inject everybody with vaccines. It's a in my mind, I'm still got that 21 in my head, Agenda 21. They want to bring the population down. Okay, so they've got their ways, and it's working to a large extent. They're bringing in every darn plan that they've got on the books. With so many things, cashless society, and who knows what else. They got all these things in the works. So it doesn't stop us from doing what we need to do. Help each other, feed each other. I'm all for that. I like the idea. Buy one, gift one. Buy one, gift 10. I say buy 10, gift 100. That's all very good. And I would like to see the existing organizations like the very many churches that are already doing this. They're preparing food, and they're allowing people to come in and partake of the food for very minimal cost. $2-3. I myself, I've experienced going through that when my chips were down. We have that in place here in Montreal. It's called a Resto Pop. You can Google it. Very, very strong organization. They feed the hungry, the homeless. A lot of people go there. They revamped the church. The whole church is a restaurant. Basically, and people go in there. They help. They chip in. And it's very minimal cost, like $3, and you've got all your meal, dessert, coffee, everything, and it's a big it's a big space, it's a big space. Look at all this unused space that exists in cities. I mean, it would be so easy to transform these spaces into useful. Into something very useful for the people. Stone soup, yeah, bring it. I mean, do it. People are ready and willing, and I think, I don't know if you guys listen to Alex Jones and all that angle. It's probably not your cup of tea, but it's helpful listening to all sides of this story with this what do you want to call it? What's the C word or whatever?
Dos Equis.
Yeah, Dos Equis. I mean, there's a different angle, a different take to it, and they're very eloquent. He's very, Jones is very eloquent in laying those ideas and how he views all that out. And it's worth considering, and besides, the shutdown here isn't helping the climate. Let's not forget about that, and there's something to be said for the comparison that's being made for how many people are dying because of the flu, the average flu, compared to how many people are dying from this, Goseki. So, we gotta we gotta pull our brains together here and tighten up a little bit with our understanding, and have the different points of view also elaborated for our consideration. That's all what I have to say for now. Thanks.
Well, I would say there, no, to be honest, in answer to that, Emery, that's like what you said there. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. But there's, in what you're saying there as well, is a perfect example of something I've been saying about misinformation and about the amount of different stories out there. And like what you were saying there, no, yes, it's a great thing to get on with the stone soup idea and everything else. Of course, that's a good idea. But what I was on about prior to that is that there's a lot of issues going on in America that aren't going on in other countries because of the Dos Equis. And the reason they're going on in America is because of mismanagement. Now, you said something very important there. You said two things actually there that I heard again today myself here in my own country. I heard someone mention that they wouldn't take a vaccine either because they don't trust vaccines. And they wouldn't give their children vaccines because they don't trust vaccines. They never gave their children the rubella and mumps and measles vaccine, and that's their belief. Like, so I understand there's a lot of people like that. But the thing is, you're right. There is well, like the idea about the chipping, like chipping people is like a vaccine. I don't think you'd let anyone put a microchip in you either. And I don't think anyone on the planet would either, put it that way, unless there are a few execs like that let them put chips in them so they get in the building and all that and everything else. But if they want to volunteer to be microchipped and follow, that's their own business. That's something that couldn't be forced to do anyway. The point is, it's just another example of, false fucking news out there and everything else, like, you know what I mean, and all these wild stories that are going around. But common sense and science is telling us, and the fact is that Emily are getting a lot of mixed up information out there, so you don't know what way to look or what way to think. The facts are that yes, there's a lot of people die from the ordinary influenza, but that has an RO of 1 or less than 1%, you know what I mean, out of 10. And the Dos Equis has been finalized now as an RO of 4.8, which means it transmits 4.8 people faster than the other thing. And the thing is, sadly, is that it's here now, whereas we're one of the first country, we're one of the last countries in Europe to be infected, but one of the first countries in Europe to close down and shut down and follow the fucking right regime. We're still only just a couple of thousand cases now of infections and only a couple of hundred in deaths, but it's starting to rise because it's going to, regardless. Thing is, we're just weeks behind the other countries, that's all. England took the same approach as yourselves, and the fact is they're fucking exponential now at the moment, and so be. And there's plenty of states in America at the moment that think because they can't see it, or there's no one dying around them, it's nowhere near them. They're okay, they're safe. I've seen people protesting because they want to go and get their hair done. And I've seen people protesting saying that's their fucking amendment, but give me my amendments or give me COVID-19. Sorry, no, I mentioned it. But that's just because those people are acting on false news. Simple as that. They have no idea what the fucking truth is. And the truth is, you're right. People, the system, though, you're probably right. They probably do want to get rid of it, the 8.5 billion. But if you follow that kind of information that you're following, they don't know what you're talking about, not getting immunized or vaccinated, and keeping your amendment by going out and walking around the place, well, then you're doing what they want you to do. You are eradicating.
You
Looks like
froze
the
up.
Illuminati took care of James.
Yeah, you froze up there, James.
Yeah,
He'll be back.
maybe the feed's live. He just got frozen by that chip that he had implanted.
I think it is the implant. Yeah,
Give him a minute, I guess, to see.
sure.
We lost him.
Now I'm sure he'll be back. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting where this trajectory has gone. It's something on one of the first meetings I was going into, are the epidemic, and I'm not referring to the disease that shall not be named. It's the epidemic of distrust, and it's very interesting to look at our economic model, how we created money to create some form of default trust, this bridge across everything, where it's such a simple form of exchange, it's easy to trust. Yet this whole mechanism of the corporation, the bigger, more the vision of unending abundance has gone to the sales models and so forth, where the sales models are designed to break down trust. Then they sell you something you can trust, which it's selling you a solution. And I mean, I think this is where it's gotten to be. All the information systems have been designed for marketing, but now people are really pushing them to sell ideas, which is interesting. But these narratives are manifold. They're used to move it, counter agenda. I mean, a lot of people didn't even see Wiley's, and when he went to Parliament, there was a 3-hour debriefing with Parliament, and it was really good. I thought Wiley was amazing. He's the guy with with the whole trying to remember the name of the company that basically ran the campaign with selling information and manipulation through Facebook for the Trump campaign. And he was the whistleblower. And
Cambridge Analytic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really good because he was really talking about the whole mechanism of it, and it was very interesting listening to the interview. And I thought the most important thing of that disclosure was not just what Cambridge Analytic was doing. They were leveraging a very big engine that a lot of the similar companies have. It's just how they decide to focus it. But a lot of these companies do. And so one of the things I find in this narrative thing is the breeding of distrust to push policy to counter that. So that's and one of the interesting areas is the astroturfing work done in in certain chemical industries, such as chemical dumping. They use to get better protections for being sued. Even in the medical area, one of the big pushes that really getting everyone to think how terrible these lawyers are that take on these cases, these cases of harm, where we've implemented in the U.S. a thing called Tort Reform, which pretty much prevents anyone being able to sue for being harmed medically, chemically. and this has been a cascade. So these defense mechanisms, these companies have been able to buy themselves into and also marketed to breed. They breed the distrust to give the policymakers a reason how their policy will deal with the chaos or the people's upset, even though it doesn't. And again, it becomes another layer. So people talk about mandated vaccines. The problem is trust. People have not have lost the trust in the medical advisors because our medical system in America is predatory. So anyone who goes to see a doctor has felt the predatory. I had a friend who went for a colonoscopy. Go in, insurance got it covered. You come out, bill of $6,000. Where did the $6,000? Oh, the anesthesiologist. That was not included. So everyone gets these surprises. So there's the whole inbuilt of all the behaviors is really pushing this. So here in America, they saw with the vaccine debate that here's all these crazy moms, these hysterical moms. We've got to do something about these hysterical moms. And so we have a it's for your own good policy. But then if you really look at the back end of that, that really works very well with the pharmaceuticals needs for indemnification and also a solid pipeline for their products. Outside of whatever an immunologist would say is necessary. The panel's assembled politically, so revolving door political advisors come in, and so people don't gather all the details, but they feel all this manipulation. And the problem is the conversation isn't talking about the details of any one of these mechanisms or the details of the actors within these mechanisms. It's all in these generalities. So and there's always somebody who pulls some article that says this and that, and next thing you know, it just fires everything up. And then everyone's in such a dather that they basically have to do a policy to deal with this. And unfortunately, you're seeing the encroachment of, I call it, it's for your own good policy. And it's not. It's usually the architecture is really designed to protect people who have means to hire lobbyists, essentially. Since our representatives here in the U.S. do not actually read policy or write policy, they just sign off on it. And as long as they know they're covered, in other words, there's going to be a media campaign that when they get caught sending the picture of their genitals to whatever, that won't damage their career. And we got a president who's managed to push every envelope of disgrace you can imagine, and it's fine. He's covered. He's good. He's golden. And that's our mechanism here. And so there's just this huge breeding of interest. And what we haven't figured out in our collective, we haven't been able to get a collection around, is how do we rebuild trust? How do we build distributed architectures for authenticating quality processes, authenticating quality piece of information and so forth? We're still tied in the economic system that's designed to keep you isolated and distrustful and so forth. And I think with the disease that shall not be named, I'm dragging from a Harry Potter things, with this, it's pushed everyone into real isolation. Now, the pandemics have been seen for a long time. That's you get researchers all over the world trying to track this stuff down. Wuhan was a known hotspot, so there's researchers there. There are researchers in the factories here in the U.S., the factory farms, because that's also a hotspot. So we know these things they were just waiting for this thing to come up. And I always find it fascinating that instinctively everyone kind of knows, and almost probably at a genetic level, what a virus means. And everyone really did respond. And so here everyone's isolated. And this is really probably one of our more tricky quicksands of, you know that when you try, if you're dealing with a typical salesperson, the first thing they try to do is isolate you, because then they're the authority. So usually the routine, you go into a Best Buy, which is an electronics store in the US, and the first thing they do is they get you alone on the floor, get you confused, and then they sell you. So that you walk out with all these products you really didn't mean to buy. And so I think instinctively we feel that too with here we're isolated and we're at the whim of all this media flow of things, and that feeling is on us. So I think we're in a very unusual landscape of trying to do the right thing policy wise for also what would you do in a pandemic, but at the same time realize that the monster, which is this economic mechanism, even though it's battered a little, it's quite, with zero, with oil down below zero, that's quite a feat. There's still a little bit of that monster's out the door when what happens next. And I think we're going to be really challenged. How do we rebuild our instruments of trusting each other? How do we build our instruments of trusting bigger systems or services and so forth? And I think that may be a really powerful conversation we need to really be starting to have to figure that out. And I think it'll take more than just a blockchain. We'll have to have really some interesting architectures and policies to weed out the noise and get to some sound structures that everyone can understand and trust. But the thing right now is we're in the branded culture. Everything's a brand. So anything we build, we'll turn it into a brand, but how do we know it's a good brand? And that's the question we're kind of going to struggle with. With that, I'm complete.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. Wow. Man, good stuff.
Yeah, actually, the whole vaccine thing, it's interesting because I've known it for a long time. I knew Andrew Wakefield about 12 years ago, and it's very interesting because the issue started with he was witnessing, he found a virus. And of course, when you find a virus through normal pathology, which is typical pathology, you ask the question, how did it get here? It happened to match the primate, the pathogen the primates got for the testing of a specific product and so forth. And his case was not all vaccines are bad. He was saying, I think there's something wrong with the formulation of this multi-shot, and we should study it. And with that, he got legally attacked to shut down his study. Not, and everyone was in the mindset, we want the studies to continue. And the company that was indemnified was then, it was pushing to basically sue him to stop studying. And that's when he had to come to America to escape the lawsuits of not doing the study. So everyone was wondering, why are you silencing? And so this is, again, we're looking at censorship, but it was more than censorship. It was, it was looking like your typical environmental law case. And so the attitude at then is that, the science of vaccine is good. He was behind vaccinations. He was, he says, it looks like just this one product. Just use the individual products. Just use the single dose, and because those apparently seemed fine. It's just this one product. But it was really the challenge was we're not allowed to question a product, a drug product, and it was the pushback to question a specific product. Even doctors who say, okay, you're scared of these multi-shots. Here's single doses that you can request instead. Those doctors were shut up. They stopped them and don't do that, because this was, again, interfering with WHO's program where they had big plans to expand the multi-dose. And so it became a political challenge because there was all these plans to And you have to look at, doctors really look at this as a product that's going to, I mean, doctors get like 10 minutes with a patient. They want to do the most for them. And this is a piece of science of addressing a very large, impactful need in a very short amount of time. And so they really do look at it as their go-to savior tool that they can do for somebody in a few minutes. And so they're really wanting to see advancements in these programs. But then at the same time, we had this one person saying there's something wrong with the product. And here we're in this issue of the holy cow, the sacred cow scenario, where you can't say anything's wrong because you're going to kill the sacred cow. But it's because we hadn't, the politicians, the medical institution hadn't really understood, how do we have this debate? We got a product in question. How do we process that? And there have been there is a meningitis vaccine that actually did cause deaths, and it was and so that was from the EU, that was blocked. But then what did the drug company do? It went and sold it to some African countries, and has the same problem there. It's just their government can be bought off. And so this is not for vaccine. This actually happens with all the products. And this is the misbehavior of the pharmaceutical companies. This is a normal behavior for them. They've had faulty products here in the US, even like they've shifted things. So the same pharmaceutical company owns the generic company. They have a bad product. And so when they find out they got a bad product, and yes, lethal, we have at least 100,000, consistently about 100,000 deaths from pharmaceutical drugs a year, not overdoses. And they will take a faulty product and they will then put it into the generic market, which is still a company they own. But here in the US, the Supreme Court has ruled that the pharmaceutical company is not liable for that bad drug if it's in a generic company, and neither is the generic company.
Well, God bless America. We got
so they're clear. So these all these mechanisms are going on, and you see, and yes, it's very corrupt. And they're able to, and we have all these policies that silence the victims, and it's not just victims of vaccines; it's victims of drugs, of medical injury, of chemical industry. And you drinking poison water because a plant dumped all this stuff in. There's all these ways of silencing the victim, and it's all the same policies. And yet we can't. When what it is because like when Tort Reform came around, it limited how much money someone could get from a lawsuit. It's like $250,000, which doesn't even cover legal fees. And so it was not, they're crippled from even suing. So what they do in the egregious cases is they settle out of court. And that's the important part. By settling out of court, they sign a gag order. They give them a nice chunk of money and say, go away. And none of the documentation ever is put into the court system. So therefore it's not discoverable. And they bought the silence. And so we have these mechanisms for silencing the victims. And the victims can't even tell their story about being silenced. So we're in a really challenging landscape where I think people really know about these things that are happening, but can't put their finger on it. But we have a lot of mechanisms that are out of control and corrupt and not allowing us to ask reasonable questions. And take and really defend against some of these institutional powers. And these aren't government, but they are leveraging the tools of government. And that's where we have trouble peeling the two apart. Yet we somehow need to have a governance stand. In other words, a cumulative position from the people to really put pressure on and respond to these crimes, and so that's and it's epidemic. It's epidemic, and the bleed out is we've all are reacting to these tragedies that are real tragedies, but we're not directing that reaction in a constructive or developmental way where we push, literally, there are people pushing back on policies. And so, but the legal cases are getting harder and harder to do.
Wow, fascinating. Well, interestingly, as we've been exploring the eradication of hunger, both directly related to eradicating Dos Equis and also in its own right, I kind of lost my train of thought there, so feel free to jump in, seriously. Emery has something to say. Thank you, Emery. I'm tagging you in very happily.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something, Jamin, from before. I had a question about Mexico, you know. I'm very curious. You probably have a better grasp or a better idea, or can evaluate at least, if Mexico were asked to feed the world, what proportion of the world do you estimate them to be able to handle? And would it be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting, let's say, to hear, on the news, Mexico feeds America, starving Americans. Mexico, like, they out of out of the goodness of their hearts, right? They come in and they donate food to that city, get the ball rolling.
I really love that you brought that up, because I know just the person to talk with about that, and that is former Mexican President Vicente Fox. His family is a farming family.
Exactly.
And very successful farming family. And that would be a hell of a PR coup for Mexico to, and let's say we took on Louisville, eradicating hunger in Louisville as just one city, and made it a major media event, the whole thing from start to finish. There's so many different companies, individuals, organizations, religions, churches, nonprofits, governments. There's so many people who, once this becomes a story, and it will be, we haven't definitively decided upon Louisville. It's one of a short list of cities we're looking at. But whichever one we pick, we are going to hit them with a media blast, right? We are going to, let the world know that we are eradicating, let's just take Louisville as an example. We're eradicating hunger in Louisville. Everyone will be fed nutritious, whole food, plant-based meals delivered to their homes to both eradicate hunger and malnutrition, boost immunology, and eradicate pandemics. So anytime there's a pandemic, boom, Louisville will be ready to go into lockdown mode, where everyone gets their food delivered to them, right? But even if we're not in a pandemic situation, we make this an ongoing service that the community basically provides to itself. Now, we'll kickstart it with folks contributing from wherever, because, Western Kentucky still doesn't have the habit of taking care of itself. It'll learn it. But the point is that we give a concentrated boost of both resources and attention and story and press conference and ongoing media coverage to the miracle of Louisville, right? Of eradicating hunger. And if one city can do it, why can't all cities do it? Why can't the whole world do it? And we literally sell it. We sell the story with that headline, right? From Louisville to the world, right? And people will get swept up in it in a very good way. We will end hunger, starting in Louisville. We'll go to a bunch of other cities and do the same thing. And, billionaires will at some point start tripping over themselves to be the first one to donate $1 billion to ending hunger. And then 10 billion. What else are they going to do with their money? Especially as we tell our story in the media in a very repetitive way that gets right to the heart of the matter. And basically says, look, world, we've got two choices. We can continue to we can keep on letting people starve, right? And with exponential planetary overheating, those numbers are going to skyrocket. The number of starving people is going to skyrocket. Now we've got pandemics on top of that, which lead to economic contraction and loss of global dimming. It's a house of horrors, and it's going up in flames. There's one way out that we can see. And if anyone sees a better way out, please let us know. But the one way out that we see is humanity finally takes care of herself, right? Feeds everyone, whole food, plant-based diet. We essentially let animal agriculture, factory farming die on the vine, which is what it's doing anyway, now in the COVID crisis, the Dos Equis crisis. And in the process of taking care of all of humanity, we all come together in a much more united way. We still don't have the experience, none of us on this meeting have the experience of all people eating, no one starving to death. The only experience we've had since the day we were born is the experience of eating, knowing that other people are dying of hunger, right? And, we've been trained to be okay with that. So we're about to go through a radical transformation where that's simply no longer okay, right? Michael and Stephen and I and Emery, we're all old enough to remember times in the United States when it was okay to just drop your trash on the street, right? I mean, that's just what you did, right?
Yep.
And then brilliant PR campaigns happened. Like, for example, in Texas, they had a campaign called Don't Mess with Texas. And they'd have, like Dallas Cowboy football players looking in the camera saying, don't mess with Texas, right? And, so creative campaigns. We are in the beginning of a creative campaign where, and then, now nobody litters. It's just, it's totally taboo. It's disgusting.
We
right?
still have some challenges.
Well, that's true. But I mean, for the
We're in the plastic battle now.
Pardon me?
We're in the plastic battle now.
Yeah, totally. That's right. But for the most part, people don't litter, or they don't do so intentionally, for the most part. Anyway, we had a cultural change around that. Well, I'm suggesting we can have a similar change around food, but really it's a broader change around taking care of each other. And once we actually take care of each other, it's like, don't try to think your way into a new way of action. Act your way into a new way of thinking.
Right.
Can
I do an adjunct on that?
Please do. Please do.
The one of the example you pick what's really interesting is you pick a U.S. city, and this is a little bit of our challenge with this concept called nationalism. But the place that hits me most of a tragedy and pulling together is Cuba. During the fall of Russia, oil was cut off from Cuba. They had just began doing permaculture, which is the machine farming where they have the plows and the pickers and all that stuff being automated with these machines. And they, but then all of a sudden they had no gas for these machines. It was a really fortunate point in their history that this happened because they still had the traditional farmers that had the ox pull the plow, were still around, and those old farmers taught everyone how to farm, and so they began farming everything. That was the, so all open land was game for farming, so that was just open for farming. Now they completely self-provide their food, and it's organic. Since they're sanctioned, they don't get chemicals, so they can't use chemicals. So it's 100% organic farming. And here's an island that took care of that. And then on top of this immunological crisis, they're shipping doctors to Spain as we talk. And they brought in the port a ship with people with the disease that shall not be named. So the community is one of the things you said they're coming at. The other note I'll end with is Michelle Obama did something very interesting. She put out a food desert map. And the food desert map was interesting because it was based on the distance people have to travel to get fresh produce. A lot of them are near a 7-Eleven with shrink wrapped everything, processed shrink wrapped. And what I found interesting when I looked at the map of the U.S. is that the worst food deserts were going through some of our best growing land in the U.S. And the piece that she was really trying to point out, what in her garden and so forth, it's like you could get rid of the food deserts by growing your own food. And that's the point that got missed.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Well, I want to welcome John, and we're recording, having an awesome discussion, really building off of our great meeting earlier today. So feel free to jump in whenever you feel like it.
Thank you, David. I am here.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome. And does everybody know everybody here? Yep. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. We were actually using Louisville as an example, but my goodness, what a great example. I mean, here they are stepping out and professing to be the mayor, calling Louisville the most compassionate city in the United States. Yes. And it's like, all right, if so, let's put that to the test, shall we? Will you work with us in eradicating hunger and making sure everyone in Louisville is nourished 3 meals a day?
Yep.
Right?
Well, Thomas Merton's home was there. And the actual city honors an epiphany he had downtown with a plaque that the majesty of everyone shining like the sun. And when the mayor, who considers himself not a politician, when he talks about compassion, it's just all human potential flourishing. And it's been a gift to us that he put out the challenge that way, because he knew what he's doing. And it's activated a movement of people who, recognize the power of compassion, empathy into action. And if there ever was a time where our empathy has been so aroused by what's going on, yet, collective action and being able to organize at unprecedented levels is what seems to be the challenge and the opportunity upon us. That's why I come to the Solution Club, because we want to advocate for solutions. And the mayor wants to host a program with other mayors where we can learn from each other at levels that we never have had to before. So I thank you, Jamin. I really came just in honor of your incredible spirit and dedication to this moment. I'm in there with you and look forward to meeting everybody you know.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Well, most of my, working hours, I did the math. This week, I'll be on video conferences well over 40 hours. And happily, much of that talking with you, working with you, and all of us. What greater single act of compassion than to make sure everyone is fed. It's kind of the ultimate single act of compassion, because if people aren't fed, guess what? They're going to be malnourished, even brain damaged, stunted, right? Emotionally, physically, mentally, in all ways. Organs don't, I mean, studies have been done. It's just the single biggest waste of human potential and guarantor of ailments and problems for the entire life going forward. So it's like, it's almost like, and I'm not saying this to anyone here on this meeting, but just saying to the universe, it's almost like, don't even talk to me about compassion if you're not willing to make sure everyone is fed, right? Don't even talk to me about compassion if you're letting 3-year-old girls starve to death in horrific, emaciated form, right? I'm saying this to the universe. So, you know, I think that we're going to cross a threshold, and I think it's going to go like dominoes, cascading dominoes, exponential dominoes that goes incredibly quickly. We're going to cross a threshold where we're going to look back to pre-2020 and just shake our heads and cringe with shame and embarrassment that we went so long letting so many of our brothers and sisters starve to death, right? And be chronically malnourished.
Maybe so.
We're making it that. We're making it so. We're making it so.
Among other things.
Among many, many, many other things. But here's the thing. If we're asking humanity to go on this journey with us to cool the planet through planetary scale SRM, which we urgently need to begin this year with great urgency, the only way I can imagine humanity getting in the game and doing that is if we're all taken care of. Because if we're letting half of us starve and saying, we'll get to y'all later, right? You're not as important. We're going to have more planes crashing into more buildings and more tactical nukes blowing up more cities, and just more. I mean, the 50% that get left behind are not going to go quietly. And it's just, it just feels like a recipe for Mad Max, right? We cannot afford to not end hunger, is how I see it. And I think that's going to become an extremely popular meme. And once we end hunger in Louisville or wherever we do it first, the rest of the world is going to be watching, and they're going to say, my God, we want that too. They're going to demand it, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's going to be like the end of slavery.
Well, that is essentially it. If you have food, then you have choices.
That's exactly right. And if you don't have food, you are enslaved to whoever can give you food, whether it's government, whether it's, you know, anyway, we all know how it goes. Emery, you've got your hand up. Go for it, bro.
Well, before I'm going to have to pat Ben out and get some other things to do. So I'm
Sure.
sorry I missed your talk, Emery. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Hey, great to see you, Stephen. Come back anytime, and definitely look for, remember, Friday is a big day. We're going to have, after the Divine Feminine, we're going to have a meeting with John and Silas and Dr. Priya. And even on the Divine Feminine, we're going to have Will Tuttle, prominent vegan writer. Anyway, it's going to be an awesome day on Friday. So,
Okay, cool. Take
awesome.
care.
Thanks so much, Stephen. We'll see you soon. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Louisville. Will the people there who are feeling impacted by the lack of food, are they going to call for the food themselves? Are they themselves the ones who will be putting themselves on some sort of a list? Or you know, are we going to direct, like, who is going to direct them and give them and instruct the people to get behind this? And if they feel impacted by the lack of food, to not hesitate to call for this gift that is being offered? You know, like, or is it just going to be given out freely, willy-nilly to to everyone, whether they were in need of it or not? Like, is it just going to be passed around?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you want me to say something to that, Jamin? Do you want to answer that?
Oh no, I'd love for you to, and if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna, speaking of feeding the hungry, I'm gonna feed the crows here, while and then I'll be out of earshot for maybe like a minute and a half, and then I'll be back. So, but carry on in the meantime, and
Well, you know what I was going to say. I mean, is that's why I came to the Solutions Club, because we want to work this out together. And so the story about this, let me just tell you my story about this, is Dr. Silas Rao invited me onto the Climate Healers Summit that they had. And he's been a staunch advocate for veganism for many years. And he's a member of this network we call SIGN. And in fact, Jamin was there in the closing session that we had just a few days ago. And when he mentioned the K Mama app, he calls it K Mama because his granddaughter's name is K Mama. That's what they call her. And he made a pinky promise to have the world stop killing animals. And I was inspired by his pinky promise to his granddaughter. And we said, well, let's talk about this. And we had just launched these Karuna games, Karuna being the Sanskrit word for compassion. He explained that you'd get Karuna points in this app, and the app was set up to connect restaurants to both eaters and donors. And you could be one and the same. In other words, you could say, I want to buy a meal and I want to gift a meal. And we want to develop the app and deploy the app in a number of cities. That's part of the Karuna Games, is working with Mayor Fisher and other mayors. So I'm hoping, that's why I came back to the Solutions Club, that we can think tactically and strategically here about the development of that. Of course, it's like all these things, if you guys have lived through building these kinds of resources and tools, there's a feature list and you go through and people have, I call it a co-creative emergent design process. But the core idea is Silas's, it's sound. Happy Cow is an aggregator of restaurants. I mean, we want the food to be nutritious. We also want to make it easy for people to play. Play here means buy a meal, gift a meal. Restaurants get the business associated with that. In Louisville, I believe that we'd get the support from the mayor. And the idea is to deploy it at a number of cities, but go through the solution development process. That's why I think this is a great opportunity for us. Can we rise to the occasion and think through collectively how we move an app from its functional prototype into a production prototype, and take into considerations the exact concerns you're talking about. My understanding, and I'm only one voice in this, is that you would ask for a meal and you'd be able to use the app to do so. And then there would be a currency in effect established for these meals, so that the people who are gifting them as well as buying them would have access to them. And some people would just have the ability to just ask for them, as well as the restaurants being nurtured in the process by providing them. Now, does that come anywhere near close to answering your question?
Well, so I take it it's the food itself would be an outright gift, and
Yes.
in no way is there someone on the other end awaiting some kind of reciprocative action on the part of the recipient of the food.
Right. No, you'd be able to ask for the food if you need it with no strings attached.
There are no strings attached, so then that'll work on the hearts of those who are on the receiving end to pay it forward at some point, as time goes on.
Beautiful. That would be great, but not a requirement to get fed.
Right. Well, it's a great idea, but it's it's got to progress to other areas as well. But you have to start somewhere, I guess, right?
Well, exactly. And
It'll should catch on, and you know, I mean, it's it's just in my head, you know, when I think of somebody in dire straits, right, and hardship, uh, to be able to feed themselves, right, is you know, they don't usually have a handheld device, you know, at their fingertips.
well,
Usually,
unfortunately,
yeah, you know, usually it's more.
right,
But
right.
of course, in this situation where there's a consideration to take into account of the lockdown, and people aren't as mobile as they're able to in the past. So, you know, it is handy to be able to call in a favor to, you know, help me out. I have, you know, but you know, there's going to be people willing to go out and do the legwork also, get the deliveries done, produce the food. It's a
Right.
big, it's quite an undertaking, right? But
No, 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 that's right. And we don't even know. It's one of those kind of journeys that you set out upon. I mean, I've done things like this before, but yes.
but you know, I kind of I was playing around with the idea that you know, it would be quite interesting to see what would result if, Mexico were the one to donate the raw materials for the food that's being
Yeah.
produced to feed these people. Now, I mean, in some ways, it would be sort of like an insulting kind of thing where people would say, geez, are we going to allow Mexico? I mean, we could do that. We could feed our own people here,
Mm.
right? You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time for a values clarification. And these prejudgments we have about each other and these nation state boundaries, the pandemic doesn't seem to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And we're at a time when the ordering of things, I think, can change and is changing right now. In fact, people who may have handheld devices may not have access to food or nutritious kind of food here that would get people to think of maybe eating less meat because they like the fact that the climate being favorably impacted is a good thing and it might change their behavior. I mean, that's what we're all kind of after, right? Big behavior change at scale.
Yeah. Well, you know, people getting their $1,200 a month, they certainly aren't going to go out to spend it out in a restaurant. I tell you.
Yeah. No, these are challenging times.
Like in my area over here in Montreal, you know, I was out today, you know, restocking my oranges because I need to have a certain amount of oranges on hand. It's a personal thing right now for me because of the health conditions and whatnot. But the place that I normally go to, it's like a food outlet, you know. But they also prepare. They used to prepare a lot of foods, you know, it's ready to eat, like barbecues or you know, salads of all kinds of different things, and closed down. People aren't even willing to buy it there because they're fearful, you know, and it's prepared in a facility. Yet it's not being done because it just isn't. People aren't ready to make that purchase for the food. They'd rather get the raw material, the raw, and prepare it at home.
All righty. Michael's had his hand up for a bit. Thanks for your patience, Michael. Go for it.
Oh yeah, well I have two comments to share, and you know, in thinking about what Emery was saying about are these going to be people in need, in dire straits? You know, I think that if the more unconditional it is, the more we offer the opportunity to shift to a gift economy. We can start to develop that whole perspective of it doesn't have to run on money. And as an example, I don't know if anybody looked at the link that Natalie put up earlier in this conversation, and it's about a woman who put a box out, and she puts food in the box, and anybody can come and take the food. It's free. And I wanted to just share a quick story. A friend of mine, I spent a lot of time fixing up an old sailboat. A friend of mine had her brother make me some cushions. His name was Leo. He's from the Philippines. Unfortunately, he just passed, so this is kind of in his memory. But he had one of those boxes in front of his house, and he put a sign that said "Food is free," and he put free food in the box, and anybody could come and take it. There was no conditionality to it. And the thing that strikes me is that these boxes then become a channel for this gifting. So he didn't provide all that food. He started to attract folks that would donate food. And that's exactly what was in the article that Natalie posted as well, that people were showing up with food to put in the box. And so just imagine if we all created these little micro channels of community support and food, and encouraged a gifting economy. I think we can build the momentum and the potential for
Emery, your mic. Maybe that was Emery expressing his opinion. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay, buddy. Don't worry about it. And Michael, you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear us, Michael, but you just froze up. Anyway, hopefully Michael will be back soon. But my goodness, I love it. Absolutely love it. And, you know, what we're talking about doing city by city kind of takes that free food concept, but to the next level. And repost the article from Natalie. Yeah, let me find it. Let me find, here we go. Coming right up. Okay, I just reposted it just like she had done it. Maybe I can do a trimmed down version where I just get the link.
my internet disconnected, so I don't know if I got cut off or what, but I hope my point was heard. Can you all hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you now, Michael. We can hear you now. Yeah, you cut off midstream there.
Did I?
But we were definitely getting the gist of what you were saying. Very clear.
Good enough.
Yeah.
See, I could have said it in half the words.
But anyway, I was just saying that, you know, what we're proposing for, you know, hypothetically Louisville, of course, actually Louisville, it's just a question of which one first. But let's say we do Louisville first. That takes this concept of food is free to a whole new level. It's not just free. We are going to prepare a whole diet, you know, a whole meal planning for the week and make the food and deliver it to you. Right? It's just so much more efficient that way. Right? For anyone who wants it, it's just like, you know, it's an ongoingly offered gift, but you don't have to accept it. If you want to make your own food, make your own food. We're certainly not going to stop you. but we make sure that everyone has plenty of food, nutritious food, immune boosting food, whole food, plant-based. All right. And this just sets a new standard for, this is how we take care of ourselves. This is how we take care of each other. And then I believe that will naturally extend to the rest of the animal kingdom, right? And Mother Earth as a whole. Because this will actually liberate us. It's kind of Buckminster Fuller style. You know, don't try to change someone's mind or change their thinking. Give them a tool that will change them. The eradication of hunger, the feeding of everyone, as we're planning, is, I believe, that tool which will open up our hearts to that more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible, to quote Charles Eisenstein's book by the same title. And we'll say, you know what, wow, we can have a world where everyone is fed, everyone is taken care of. And I believe that that's actually a requirement for us to do something so big and bold as planetary scale SRM, to the scale that we need it and in the time that we need it. So it's kind of like, for me, it's like a prerequisite. If we want to be able to cool the planet, we've first got to feed everyone. And Emery's hand has gone up. Go ahead, Emery.
Yeah, I think that it'd be something to consider when delivering food to these people, that it shouldn't be just a 1-day thing, you know, or a 2-day thing. You know, I'm thinking about Christmas time, you know, when you know the needy get a basket, right? And that usually lasts all of Christmas, like during the Christmas, New Year's, like it'll last a couple of weeks, you know, at least. So, you know, I think it should be a box of raw materials to be used for the person. Maybe it could have maybe a couple of goodies, right, that are prepared for you know, like immediate use, right, immediate consumption. But for the most part, it would just be, here are the ingredients, and you know, there are some instructions here too, or maybe a couple of recipes for you to be able to put it together, you know. And that way it would cut down on the deliveries, because that in itself is quite an undertaking. If you were to have to do that every day for so many people, you know, that you're talking a big labor force there just to have that taken care of. But if it's look, here's enough nutrients for you for the whole month, or for at least 3 weeks, you know, we're talking about delivering maybe a manageable box, right, of raw of ingredients to any given individual.
Yeah, Emery, if you don't mind my interjecting, I guess you weren't tuned in earlier when I was talking about exactly that, where we would deliver, say, an Amazon fresh sized reusable industrial plastic box, a big bin full of, say, like a week's supply of food for a whole family, right? And then a week later, we come by with a new bin, and we take back the old bin, which we take back, and then we clean and sanitize and all that, and it goes back on the assembly line, right? And so, yeah, we anyway, I guess you weren't tuned in when we were talking about it.
I must have been eating an orange.
No problemo. But anyway, very good idea. And so, and that's it. You know, I mean, we could do this so much more efficient, and it's so much more efficient to do it that way than to have everybody going around, putting around in their own cars to the grocery store, grabbing a basket. I mean, you know, I get the whole grocery store thing. It's not like I don't get it. I'm just saying from an efficiency standpoint, right? This is kind of maxed out efficiency. And, but, you know, but by far the biggest impact is eradicating hunger and malnutrition, right? And just raising the floor to such a degree, right? I mean, by far the worst aspect of poverty is hunger and malnutrition. That's by far the worst, right? I mean, there's a lot of tragedies that can befall a person, but I'm just saying in terms of chronic poverty. Anyway, the bottom line is, oh, by the way, I think while you were talking, Emery, Melissa showed me an image. And there's a food truck in the University District of Northeast Seattle. And on the food truck, it's painted loud and clear, free vegetarian food. How cool is that?
And it's delicious. I've eaten it. It's amazing.
Wow. How cool is that? How cool is that? And it's exactly what we're talking about here. And it's happening right here in Seattle. So we're simply taking that all the way, right, to every last neighborhood. And that's all there is to it. And here's how I see the whole thing self-organizing. As we do it, every community in the world will get into it. And it'll simply be, you know, what took us so long to finally do this. And whether they do it through donations of food, whether they do it through donations of money, that's, for me, is impossible to predict. But the donations need to come. And, you know, first people will be looking out to their own communities just in a natural progression. Their own communities first. Okay, everyone's eating well here. Okay, great. Are there poor communities around that aren't getting fed? Okay, let's donate there. How about in other states? Okay, let's donate there. How about in other countries? Let's donate there. And once all of humanity is elevated from the previous floor, which was basically death, once we're elevated to, hey, we're all guaranteed nutritious food, no one's going to starve, then right there, for me, that's the single biggest transformation that humanity will have undergone since the agricultural revolution. The transformation from a barbaric world where a good portion of us dies of starvation, and many times more than those horrific numbers are malnourished and stunted and harmed permanently for the rest of their lives. The years, the centuries, the millennia that we tolerated that situation as a chronic way of life will be seen as just barbaric ages that we just emerged from. And once we emerge from those barbaric ages, we will never go back. And once we're all living in a world where everyone is cared for, right? Then together we can care for Mother Earth. It's really that simple. Number one, we'll have seen how by making some, relatively minor adjustments here and there, we can make sure everyone eats. We will be blown away by the power of what we can do working together, because it's going to take all of us working together to make this happen. And once we see that we have this power, we'll say, okay, where else can we wield this power? Well, the planet's overheating exponentially, and we'll all be dead in a couple of years if we don't. And I'm quite serious when I say that, a couple of years. It could be 5 years, right? But things are really overheating exponentially. At last count, 67 self-reinforcing feedback loops. Anyway, I won't go into details on that. But the reality is what it is. And the reality is that we need planetary scale SRM. Well, once we've ended hunger, we will have the self-confidence as a species to do planetary scale SRM. That will be the next big moonshot for us, is SRM. And we'll now have the nourishment and the self-confidence to take it on. Michael Harris asks, will it be in time? Well, I don't know. But I do know that the sooner we get on it, the better our chances of survival. So let's get on it ASAP. Let's not wait. And one of the points I want to make about that is, I mean, this free vegetarian food truck in Seattle, that's providential, okay? Starting with the mayor of Louisville and these other mayors, let's have meetings with all of them one at a time, and then of course in groups we can do it. In fact, how cool would it be if a bunch of cities all committed simultaneously to eradicating hunger, right, and malnourishment in their cities through fundamentally a very similar model. And let's see, John writes in there, aho, aho. What does that mean, John?
Just affirming what you're saying. It's a term used in indigenous cultures when someone says something that you want to underscore and say, yes, aho.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, really appreciate that.
And in the spirit of divine providence, I just got an email from someone in Louisville, because Louisville is this amazing place. They have the oldest interfaith event going on there. It's called the Festival of Faiths. Reaching out and hopefully, and I'll forward it to you. It's just a great example of, because this person is probably unaware of Mayor Fisher's call to play, and certainly unaware of the app that we're talking about. So I do operate as if we have everything we need, that there's some sense of history making to all of these conversations that will add up. I just challenge us to really follow your model, Jamin, for solution development. Let's really take our best thinking and put it into practice in empowering Silas and his dream here. Because for me, leadership is enabling another to achieve purpose in the face of uncertainty. And for us to get behind his promise to his granddaughter and the dream that you heard and I heard expressed in this app gives us a chance to really build our muscles, like you're saying, for taking on the more challenging opportunities or equally as challenging opportunities that are awaiting us at this time. So that's what brought me to the Solution Club. That's what brought me to want to learn and be a contributor to our best efforts here to rise together.
Beautiful. Thank you, John. Wow. Well, much to say about that. Emery's got his hand up. Go for it, Emery.
Yeah, I wanted to just put out a suggestion for the food. The food is very sensitive. Is a very time-sensitive thing. If it too much time goes by, the food rots, or the food isn't good anymore. It spoils. So I would suggest that if there's a way to have some kind of processing done where the food is either freeze dried or dehydrated, and you can dehydrate a lot of foods, okay, and you know, portion them out in different ways. Same thing with freeze dried, and the only thing that has to be done on the other end is to rehydrate, you know, with water, and you're ready to go. You're ready to consume the food, you know. But I think that this would be a positive thing to incorporate when we consider how we're going to deal with the food, and then, you know, try to find ways to do that in an efficient way.
Yeah, totally. You know, a friend of mine got her degree in food technology in Germany as a, you know, 4-year engineering program. And so, you know, there are people who get PhDs in this stuff. So that's a bit outside my wheelhouse. You know, on the one hand, you'd like to have stuff fresh and just bursting with nutrients. On the other hand, you want shelf stable. And, you know, there's a happy medium, and it depends on, you know, fundamentally whether it's a pasta plate, a stew, you know, a salad, a fruit, et cetera, et cetera. So the bottom line is we'll figure all that out, right? We don't have, once the appropriate, you know, food technologists, nutritionists, chefs, et cetera, are at the table, so to speak. So I'm sure we'll get all that figured out. You know, as far as Louisville, I love that whole interfaith thing. Louisville is really at the intersection of a lot of I mean, it's at the intersection of North and South. Kentucky was a divided state during the Civil War. It's sort of at the intersection between, you know, Midwest industrial and Midwest Great Plains.
It's the heartland.
It's the heartland. It's right in the heart of it all. And
The northernmost southernmost northern city. I've been in graveyards where brothers fought on different sides in the world in the Civil War. You got Muhammad Ali Center there. You've got, you know, Gethsemane, and just the irony of it all. So much of the work on compassion, which Dalai Lama has a center there, is fueled by the bourbon industry. And they've got a sense of pride and competitiveness. The Louisville Sluggers. It's really an amazing place, and it's a great place to start with the mayor being the incoming president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It's got all sorts of aligned partners already in place there.
No, I love the idea, and in fact, if we choose to focus on Louisville, I will volunteer to call up personally whatever list of restaurants we need to talk with, restaurant owners, and you know, share the vision with them and see who's interested, see who's in. Let's get everyone lined up, and likewise, let's network with the, you know, the farmers and the associations of farmers. There are so many different you know, perspectives that we need at the table, and now in the Zoomosphere, it's so easy to configure the right combinations. I mean, this is an art and a science. The science is collective superintelligence, which we're, you know, happily doing our part to pioneer. In this case, by just putting it into practice, right, with these long form recorded venues. the block party being the the big kahuna 24 hours straight. But anyway, this is, I believe, the project for collective superintelligence to really sink its teeth into and flourish into what we need it to be for our planet, for all of humanity, for all of our species, through all of the transformations we need to go through, including cooling the planet in time, including cleaning up and deacidifying the oceans, including going vegan, including just radically transforming our relationship to each other and to all of life on Earth, to really maturing into that caretaker species that we have the potential to be. And how beautiful life has the potential to be. That we've just been denying of ourselves. Why? Because, well, we've been on this inertia, this inertial hamster wheel, right? So I think we have a golden opportunity to take this moment when all the playing cards in the deck are up in the air and flipping and twisting and turning around seemingly in slow motion, and reconfigure things. Everything is up in the air right now. And so, you know, I don't think we're going to get a lot of opposition to making sure that everyone has enough to eat in this time of crisis. You see, we sneak in this, you know, essentially, let's call a spade, essentially a communist friendly notion. It's certainly not anti-communist. I'll put it that way. How did we sneak that in the middle of a pandemic where people's minds are open to doing things differently? Everything's different now. So it'll almost be like when it hits the news, it'll be like, well, cool, awesome, right? I don't think anyone will say, communist, right? What is this? Let's be like, cool. Louisville's taking a creative approach, and then it'll sort of sink in. And then sometime in the middle of the night, when you're coming back from the bathroom, it'll be like, wait a second. They're guaranteeing that everyone will have food to eat. I like that idea. You see how it kind of grabs you? Yeah, I think Louisville is going to be just a beautiful place to do this. And it's in such a green part of the world. All right. Just when things were getting a little quiet, my sister Jackie is back. Jackie, how you doing? Well, we've just been forging ahead with, for the most part, the main topic. We've bounced around a little bit here and there, and we are recording. We got John Raymer with us, and we've just been jamming. You know what? Another story just occurred to me that this, I think, maps to very well. And that is the story of the emperor's new clothes, right? Because the thing is, once we start feeding everyone, it will be so obvious that that was the way to go all along. And what the heck took us so long, right? You know, it's like, you know, easily at any given moment, 1/10 of us are malnourished to starving, right? And in fact, a lot more than 1/10 of us are undernourished, malnourished. And, you know, and then the whole carnivore thing, destroying the planet to feed people meat. You look at all that, and it's like, this is so obviously wrong and so obviously fixable. And yet we all just kind of stood there going, oh, nice clothes, Emperor. It's like, oh, yeah, well, of course capitalism is the way to go. Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, people who don't work, well, maybe they should go hungry and then they'll be motivated to work. I like this. I mean, we're just like, we're stupefied because no one else is speaking up about it, right? And so we get, you know, we get lulled back to sleep by whether it's somebody getting interviewed on NPR or some, you know, academic talking about how, well, you know, and overpopulation and and, you know, then, you know, it's like, can we just solve it already? Yes, we can. Okay, if we can do it, then let's do it. And why are we even talking about anything else? Why are we even considering not solving it? Can anyone give me one reason to consider not solving it? Yes, Emery. Emery's going to give us a reason. Just kidding.
They're going to say it's going to lead to free health care, you know, like, you know, it's, yes, we can, you know, and why shouldn't everybody be healthy? You know, why should you have to, you know, completely ruin your whole life, you know, if you get sick and you got some things laid away, right? You got a little bit of a land or a home and you lose everything because you got ill and you got to pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for your procedures, you know, or for your drugs. Yeah, I mean, this should be a humanitarian thing, you know. Healthcare, I mean, sure. Yes, we can. You know, if we can feed the people, we can certainly keep them healthy, you know, and allow them to go to our hospitals, you know, and be treated by our healthcare professionals, and certainly provide them with enough life-saving drugs, or anyway, you know, if there are any that exist. I mean, you know how corrupt that is and everything, but you know, there are certain things that you know, are helpful, vitamins and things, you know, things like that, you know, homeopathic drugs. So you know, it's going to lead to health care for sure. And I'm not saying it would be a bad thing.
Well, you know, interestingly, Emery, there is a fine line or a fuzzy boundary between healthcare and providing food care, right? Nutrition care, nourishment care. In fact, good nutrition is the basis of healthcare, of caring for one's health. If you don't have good nutrition, you're building a house on a foundation of quicksand. Nothing is going to hold on that sloppy foundation. So it's the most basic form of healthcare, and it's, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? It's the most preventative form, holistically preventative form of healthcare known, and finally, so it's going to cut down on the healthcare burden tremendously by doing it preventative and holistic. But then finally, you know, I totally agree with you. It's a progression where, you know, the optimal, the ideal, by far the most efficient is to integrate nutrition with the rest of healthcare, right? As one holistic service guaranteed to all humanity. Back to the example of Cuba. Cuba did it, right? They're exporting doctors to Europe now to help with the Dos Equis crisis.
And you know, I have to say that had I not transitioned and had I not been plant-based, the conditions that I had before, I would have been terrified during this crisis. I had the hypertension, I had the type 2 diabetes, I was incredibly obese. I was on borderline having sleep apnea. You know, I was on high anxiety medications. I was just not a healthy person. And when we talk about malnourishment, malnutrition, you know, I was 323 pounds of malnourishment and malnutrition. I was dying. I was dying from malnutrition. And I haven't seen a doctor in a year. I'm on no medications. The medical industry doesn't even know I exist anymore. Talk about, you know, the healthcare costs just from transitioning, just from treating my body with love and feeding it with light and life, the difference that it has made, and also the anxiety that I don't carry with me. My immune boosting, not only what I'm eating, but my peace of mind, the trust that I'm healthy enough to combat whatever comes my way. That anxiety is not even there. So we affect all of that when we provide that nutrition and that nourishment, the anxiety, that depression, that we alleviate, which again impedes the immune system. So not only are we contributing to the health and vitality returning to these people, that also will eliminate a comorbidity that makes them vulnerable, but also that stress and anxiety that suppresses the immune system when you're worried that you can't even feed your family.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's just so clear that this hunger thing will not stand. And we simply need to take a stand against it, be firm, and succeed in one city and show the world it can be done. What are you waiting for? Join us. That's it, right? And as long as there's hunger in the world, shame on every last billionaire for not contributing at a minimum hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's say they have $1 billion. Fine. Keep 100 million. It's way more money than you'll ever need. And donate the other 900 million. And if you're a multi-billionaire, if you're Bill Gates, I don't know, net worth 100 billion or whatever the hell, donate 99 billion. Look, 99 billion is enough to eradicate hunger in the world for years to come. Good heavens. What are we waiting for? Go ahead, Jackie.
I don't know if anyone, while I was gone, has brought up this question or addressed it yet. So forgive me if you have, but I was just thinking, whenever you say that with the billionaires donating, do we really see that they are going to be willing contributors, not to our project, but because our project innately will eliminate the structure that keeps them billionaires? Are they going to want to contribute to this effort?
You know, that's a really good question. Oh goodness, James has had his hand up for a while, so I'll get back to the billionaire question once James has had an opportunity. Go ahead, James. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Sorry about earlier on. I got cut off there. My phone went dead. Yeah, I want to go back to like something that you were talking about there earlier on. Like, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, the free food and the health side of it and everything else is it is primary. The basis of good health is good nourishment. I agree with all that. But a lot of the problems you're on about there, like I empathize there now with Emery's situation that he was explaining there. Now people that are working hard all their lives and then they get sick and then they have to have to pay out a fortune for medical and everything else then, and all their savings are gone and everything is gone, and then they're left without even food and they can't even pay for their medical still because it's so outrageously expensive. And I get that and I empathize with that a lot as well. But now that like that, and that's happening in a lot of countries around the world, but there are countries like that's what I'm saying. It's, for such a rich country like your own, again, no one saying that but for such a wealthy country, it's a disgrace that that's happening there because, again, no, we're not what you call, or we weren't what you call a wealthy country all along. For Europeans, in European standards, we are now, we're doing good, of course, now, like, and everything else. Well, we're in debt and everything else, like, but we have free medical, like, you know what I mean? We have systems in place where charities, as I said no earlier on, community charities and everything else, and people get fed if they're hungry, and we have free medical. If you haven't got the money, you get what medical treatment you need, and especially if it's emergency treatment and everything. And you're not going to get billed with it because you get if you're on low income or social welfare, you get a medical card, and that covers it. Like the government just basically pay it. Like if you have to go on lifetime medications, you just pay €2 for your prescription to be filled. That's it. Regardless of what the medication costs, you're just paying €2 for the prescription to be filled in the chemist. So we have that, and in England they have the NHS. They have a free medical system as well. There's a lot of countries in Europe have free medical systems like that. Now, obviously there's waiting lists, and some medical systems aren't as good as others and everything else. And we export doctors and what have you. For America, for such a rich country to be in the problem, to be dealing with the problems that they're dealing with, and for people to work hard all their lives and contribute with their taxes to end up in a position that Emery was describing is it's a disgrace. Like, I just don't understand. I have to keep asking questions like why all the time, because, you know, it seems to me like your main problem is that you've got two political parties that sees the other, and their followers see the others as enemies, and they're always fighting together, and they won't agree with each other no matter what because they see the others as the enemy, and it's ridiculous. Like, but I think, you know, it's designed that way. It's deliberately designed that way so that they have this conflict all the time, and so that they can get away with not doing things that they should be doing because the other side didn't agree with it. So it's just a clever way of getting away with things they shouldn't be doing. Whereas there should be no more politicians elected by billionaires who pay for them to get in. There should be none of that. That's not allowed to happen here. No campaign. Nobody here that runs for politics here can have their political campaign paid for privately by private financial backers or anything else like that. It's paid through the political party have funds for their campaign when the general elections come around, and they take their funding from their party, and it's only minimum funding for poster and advertising things. There's no big propaganda campaigns being spread around, and there's no setting the cat among the pigeons by telling basic lies to the other side, or telling your own people and your own followers that those people are publishing false news and this, that. What you have is complete and utter division in your country, and that's your problem. The problem is, that's what I mean by your problem, main problem is you have complete and utter division in a country that's supposed to be a democratic. Your democracy is false in a sense because you don't actually work it right. Well, that's the general problem. You work in a democratic society against enemies, your own people, 1-2 split down the middle, like it's crazy. Like, for what? Because of a history that you can't bury and get on with the fucking future and not the past, like we're talking about here. So, you know, it's the people, like, back here in Ireland, people stand up and say, enough's enough, cop yourselves on. We're electing you in here to do the job and to work for the people. And if you don't do it, like, you're out the next time around. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. You don't have that way at all. Like, it's all run by big business. And Jackie's right, Mosh, she said, why would the big businesses go along with the plan that you're proposing? Because it means taking the money out of their pockets, and that's all they're interested in. The big business is money at the end of the day. So, but I still believe it's the right way to go. And because when you show someone something by example, it takes off better than just trying to describe it to them in a world where it seems impossible. So live by example. That's the best way to go. So I'm all behind it. It's a great way to go. But you're facing a far bigger problem in America because your whole political system is based on division. Sorry, carry on.
No. You're great, James. You're just perfect. Man, what a great conversation. I mean, what we're finally doing, and this is part of what the Emperor's new clothes analogy is, we're just exposing how barbaric we've been by not providing basic nutrition to our people. Oh, is someone taking off? Let's see here. All right. Okay. All right, John, great to see you and look forward to seeing you again very soon. Friday, if not sooner. Look forward to it. All right. Hugs all around.
See you, John. See you, Natalie. Take care, Natalie. Talk to you Saturday or Friday.
Oh, is Natalie taking off as well? All righty. Natalie, great to see you. All right. We'll see you Friday. Thanks, Natalie.
I've got two quick contributions. I was off searching quotes and I can't find them, but so this goes back a little bit into back to what Jamin, you were talking about. And there's a quote that I'm familiar with. I can't find it on the net, from Julia Butterfly Hill. And it simply says, we cannot have peace on earth until we have peace with the earth. And I think that related to something that you were saying, that the example of Louisville and eradicating hunger can lead us to that greater understanding of frankly, peace with the earth. So worth considering. And then the other quote I really would like somebody to help me with is, and I have to paraphrase again, but it's the one that says, at first you're ridiculed and your ideas are ridiculed and not accepted, and then something happens and then they're seen as obvious. And that's also a reference to what you were talking about, Jamin.
First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they embrace or whatever. And another way of saying something very similar is the 3 stages of acceptance. The first stage of acceptance is, well, that's crazy. That'll never work. The second stage of acceptance is, oh yeah, I know that exists, but it doesn't apply to me. And the third stage of acceptance is, well, of course that's how we do it. What took you so long? This is one person moving through the 3 stages.
Yeah. And
right.
I think that applies to your example of eradicating hunger.
Exactly. I mean, it's like we've just grown so used to living with hunger as a fact of life. That's just the way it is. Da 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 da. And it's really their fault because they overpopulated, and if we feed them, well, they'll just overpopulate more, right? So we can't feed them. It's horrific, and yet day after day we tolerate it. Well, the buck stops here. We're going to go one city at a time and then get the word out to all cities, to all communities. You do not have to have hunger.
You know, I was thinking about what James was talking about, and about, you know, the false sense of democracy that we have in this country, the joke. But also why we can't all stand up. There is this system of racism that also keeps us all divided and separated. I think is something that is part of the reason why this full sense of democracy stays in place. It's because we see each other as others, so that we see each other within our own communities. Like I just finished a 6-week study group on white fragility on the book and discussing it, and being one of the only people of color in the group to have to receive all these older Caucasian people digesting this book from this white woman saying we're keeping the system in place. So I always feel kind of sensitive when we're talking about feeding, let's feed the hungry, let's make sure we eradicate starvation, because then we also within communities have to be very gentle and delicate how we introduce this message of, are we saving? Are we coming here to, because of the division that is maintained from higher ups between us within communities. So we also not only have to look at the billionaires and how do we get them to participate, but also how we introduce this to communities, especially communities of color, communities that have been oppressed. You know, then we're not going to be the saviors that are going to come in and we're going to eradicate, you know, hunger. We're going to save everyone. So it's also the kind of delicate how we introduce this information and this help and assistance to these communities that are disenfranchised also. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And my contribution would be for openers, just do it with respect and kindness and love, and just say, look, we're here offering food to everyone. We are colorblind. I don't care what color you are. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you very much. I don't care what color you are. This is for you. This is for everyone who wants it. If you don't want it, just say no, right? Simple as that. But we're simply offering food to everyone. And this is what it's all about, and this is why. So you can stay home, so you don't have to go out and shop. See, we even make it easier for people to say yes to. Why? So you don't have to go out and shop. Not because you're poor. So that way we take away the stigma. Let us feed you. Let us cater, right? Stay home. And if you want to say thanks, get on Zoom. You know, join the collective intelligence, right? We need everyone participating in that.
Had you already discussed while I was gone? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Is there someone waiting?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Had you already discussed, like, what are the next immediate steps? Like, where do we go from here now that you've kind of explained all this? What's like in the near future for us?
Yeah. So one of the immediate next steps is on Friday, during the block party, right after the Divine Feminine, we're going to have, I don't know if you saw my email, but John and Silas and Dr. Priya have all said yes to 11 a.m. start time. So we're going to have a dynamite Divine Feminine 2 hours, and then we'll jump right straight into this. And between now and then, I'm going to be working out, you know, some elements of a roadmap. Others will be as well. Dr. Priya shared with us the good news that She's reaching out to other vegan doctors of different specialties, starting to build out her team. Woo! No, this is happening. This is happening. So I would ask everyone to do the same. Just do some deep thinking and meditating and envisioning. Envision a world where everyone eats.
And I would even suggest the feeling of it, because we manifest through our hearts, we manifest through feeling. It has to be a lived experience. We have to feel it in our cells. We have to know it in our bodies, that reality we are downloading at this moment. And with our intention and our hearts and our actions, we're manifesting it. But that reality is in existence. It's one of the potentials that we are intentionally uploading, downgrading into, activating and putting into action. And we believe that, and we can see it, but we can feel it. There's not going to be anything to stop us. There's not. We're energetic beings. We're just going to ripple that out, and people are going to resonate with us. They just will, because we have no ulterior motive to just be in love and healing. There's nothing that can beat that.
You know, I'm so glad Jackie said that, because I heard Jamin channeling something I said on one of the earlier meetings about feeling the need to just help us imagine better, to break the bounds of our paradigm that keep us from imagining, again, to use Charles Eisenstein's great line, you know, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. But Jackie, you just hit it. It's like, so, you know, I've got this very male, like vision thing, you know, when I talk about imagination, and you're absolutely right. It's like, no, we need to be able to feel what that feels like. And that's what will make it a reality. And I just love that. And I think that's the dimension of imagination that needed to be added to that conversation that I was trying to bring forward. So thanks for saying that.
Oh, thank you. I always equate it to children. When children are pretending, they're not pretending. That is a lived experience for them. They are living it. It is real, and you cannot tell them anything different. They have access. They have access to that invisible world that permeates ours. And we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to access that reality that we know that we can manifest in this third dimension. And when we bring that into our hearts, that's when we feel it. And we feel it, and we know it, and we believe it, and nothing will stop us. Nothing. So thank you for saying that, because that really is the message. Feel the love. Feel the connection. Feel that that philanthropic heart that we have. Feel that connection. Know that we're all one. When you feel that, you can't stop yourself. Everything you do will be in that flow. And we raise our vibration when we're there. When we raise our vibration, that's when we connect with everyone else, and then we all kind of resonate together. So it is all about feeling. Thank you. For the first time in a long, long time, and I've been excited about all our projects. I've been excited about everything we're doing, being excited about talking. But it's the first time that I feel like I just came out of the Vegan Collective Intelligence meeting, and we were saying we all feel grounded. We feel the first, like the concrete is poured, and we feel it and we can see it, and we're like, I don't know where it's going, but I can see the beginnings and the structures taking place, and it's crystallizing in front of us. And that's what's happening here, that energized feeling of, I can't see it, but I see the beginnings. I see it, and it feels really, really good.
Well, I think I've gotten my fix from the Solutions Club for the day.
That's what we do at the Solutions Club. We provide fixes.
Pun intended.
Awesome. Great stuff, Michael. Thank you for being here. And can we expect to see you on Friday?
Yeah, I'm sure at some point. I haven't really planned it out and don't really care to if I don't have to. I try not to work on Fridays, but everything is upside down right now anyway. So
Yeah, totally.
I don't. I'm working remotely.
Well, hey, it's a
Air
party.
quotes.
So don't work. Come to a party, the block
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
Right.
I have trouble knowing when I'm working and when I'm not working at this point. It's there's a lot of naps involved. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we have a really awesome Divine Feminine segment that Jackie and Myra and Melissa will be leading, and then and Will Tuttle will be their guest, and our guest, and then right after that at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll have this awesome meeting that will include Dr. Silas Rao, Dr. Priya Naik, and John Raymer, who was just here, and all of us, about exactly what Jackie asked. What are the next steps? Where do we go from here? So Friday's going to be really good. Just wanted you to know that. All right. Thanks so much, Michael.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really good. So thanks for that. Thanks for putting it together.
You're
I hope I can catch some of the Divine Feminine, and then and it sounds like the folks you just mentioned it's going to be focus on veganism and eradicating hunger. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Sounds
in the process, eradicating pandemics.
mm-hmm.
Big stuff. All righty. Awesome. Jackie, sister, how you doing? I'm going to pause for a second, just kind of